Welcome to the Coming Home Well podcast, the show that educates, supports, and advocates for the veteran community. Your host, Dr. Tyler Piron, U.S. Army retired, will bring you exciting conversations with amazing guests about resources, research, and military history, all geared to helping our warriors to come home well. Here's your host, Dr. Tyler Piron.
Welcome back to Coming Home Well. I'm your host, Dr. Tyler Piron, and today we're going to talk about pets. I have lots of pets. Gosh, I think somewhere in the house, I think between all the different animals, we probably have 7 or 8 different animals in our home, and that's not even counting all the fish, okay? I'm talking about things with fur and scales, but what do you do when you have to deploy or go to the hospital or, gosh forbid, go to jail or anything where you're not able to take care of your companion? We have Betsy Kilkenny, and she does something really awesome. She's the executive director of PACT. Now, PACT stands for People and Animals Companions Together, which I thought was really cool. And they do some really cool stuff to help keep veterans with their animals when they need some help. Betsy, thank you so much for joining us on Coming Home Well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
So I touched on it just a little bit. What the heck do you guys do?
So you are correct in what you said. It sounds almost too good to be true, but I can 100% assure you it is not. We are a national nonprofit that provides long-term in-home foster care for the pets of our military service members, either when they're on active duty and deploying, when they are relocating, when they're on training assignments, and also if they come home and they need hospitalization for a long period of time or recovery. We're working with active duty as well as veterans. And this is in all 50 states across the country.
All 50 states. That must be a lot of coordinating, a lot of phone calls, a lot of things happening. How the heck do you guys do that?
It really is. So the idea for itself is very simple. People need help, and we're there to provide and manage foster care. But you are absolutely correct. How do you do this all? So we have an outstanding team as well as volunteers across the country that are helping us. But there's really 2 big parts to what we do. There's the pet owner side and there's the pet foster side. And it all starts with an application. When someone reaches out to us for help as a pet owner, what we're going to start to do is create a pet profile. Just because you have a dog or need a dog that needs fostering doesn't mean we're going to give it to someone that volunteers their hand and says, "Hey, I like dogs." Absolutely not. We're creating a pet profile almost in the way Match.com works to help someone get a date. We're going to learn a little bit about the pet, not only how old they are, but do they have any medical issues? Are they good around children? Are they good around other pets? How old are they? Everything about this pet. We're then going to make sure that they're up to date on vaccinations, that they're either spayed or neutered, and that also that they don't have a history of aggression, because these are just some things we cannot work with, especially when we're working in all 50 states. After we create the pet profile and they're accepted into our program, at the same time, we're managing foster care applications. They're creating a profile for themselves. Where do they live? Not, do you have a mega mansion? Absolutely not. But what's the environment like? Do you have a fence? And just because you don't have a fence, that's okay. But we need to get a sense of what the home environment is like. Where is your closest veterinarian? How do we know that you're going to be a responsible pet owner? So once we have the pets in need, we look at the pet foster homes that we have accepted into our program. And our team goes to work to find the match. But it doesn't stop there. Once we come up with a match, we're going to be introducing the pet owner and the pet foster to have that conversation and be comfortable with one another. Sometimes it's really quick because we can find someone within a couple hours distance and we work with them a little bit on transportation, but it all goes well from there. Sometimes we can't find a pet foster home within that pet owner's area, and we're looking at multiple states across the country if the pet owner is willing to transport their pet to find a loving and appropriate home. But once the pet and the foster have been matched, our team then makes monthly check-ins throughout the entire foster care process. We want to make sure that the pet foster is doing well, that the pet's doing well, that the foster is sending pictures and updates and emails to the pet owner to let them know how their kids are doing. Because we understand just how much it means when you have to be deployed or hospitalized and you're really wondering what's your best friend doing at home. You want to know that they're being well taken care of.
That they're living their best life out there.
Absolutely. And because of that, we also are very proud on operating with full legal liability contracts. We have legal insurance to make sure that we are protecting all of the pets and all of the people in our programs because life happens. Even some of our best pets all of a sudden have a day of, oops, something happens and a cat rips up a couch, or maybe there is a dog bite here and there. But that's why we carry insurance to make sure that we're protecting everyone. And then at the very end, whether this has been 2 months or up to 2 years, our team is also coordinating the reunion date and hopefully there with a camera and video camera in hand to get that beautiful picture of the reunion. But really, we are there the entire foster care period for every pet.
So it's not just set them up and, all right, you guys are on your own, boom, it's done. How in the world, what are the criteria? So I'm a soldier or I'm a veteran or what's that criteria for me?
Sure. So when you start with an application, there's certain things we're going to ask you for just to make sure that people are not abusing or taking advantage of our program. We are going to ask for a copy of your orders, or at the very least, if there's a statement showing that you're relocating or that you're going on training or something to that effect, or that you're going into the hospital. And especially when we're working with hospital patients, whether soldiers returning from active duty or veterans, we do not want to know what you're being treated for. We just need to know from either a social worker or nurse and a doctor, of course, if that's possible, just to make sure you're actually getting the treatment that you say that you need. After that, we're going to ask for a copy of the pet's vaccination records to make sure that they're healthy and up to date on all of their shots. So that's kind of the criteria that we need even to start the process. Once that, as well as we do need to make sure that the pets are not spayed or neutered. we don't want any surprise puppies or kittens.
That they are spayed or neutered.
They are spayed or neutered. They must be spayed or neutered. We don't need any surprises along the way. But pretty much that's the criteria. And after that, we're going to go to work to find you a foster.
So, in general, when you're going to deploy or something. Now, sometimes people have to deploy pretty quick notice. They might get a couple weeks notice. That happened to me one time. And if that might be a possibility, you're on active duty, can I get in touch with you? Say, look, I don't know when I'll be deployed, but I know that I probably will be.
Oh, yes.
At some point.
Yes. 100%. It is far easier for our team to find an appropriate match if we have ample amount of time to look for that. Because we have a little bit more than 1,500 approved foster families in our database across the country. But we know that's just the scratch of the surface. So a lot of times after we've gone through our profile to see if there's a match, if we can't find any right away, we're reaching out to our service partners throughout the country, different organizations, community hubs and centers, military bases, even social media, and posting, hey, here's some fur facts about a pet that's in need in your area. We don't have a foster family in mind yet. Is this something that you could share with your audiences? So yes, the sooner you can tell us that you're going to need help, even 3 or 4 months out, that's great. That gives us lead time to start looking, because at any given time, we have probably up to 200 pets pending across the country. So it's not like 5 or 10 that used to be.
Yeah, 200. That's a lot. And life happens. Things go fast. A lot of times we do have some predictability with deployments, but just like with Poland, we all of a sudden deployed a whole bunch of folks very quickly. They weren't planning on going, and boom, they're there.
We incurred quite a wave. We called it our wave of need, but it really was. When the uprising started and we had mass amounts of troops deploying, we were getting, on average, we started out with about 20 to 30 requests consistently per month. And that easily skyrocketed to over 200. And then since then, it's remained pretty consistent. So what that's done for us is not only did we need to expand operations right away in order to handle the volume, we've really been on a mission to identify many, many, many more foster homes across the country just in order to meet the demand. We've also been on a mission to raise more money in order to meet this demand, because there's, like I said, the idea for this is very simple, but there is a lot lot of moving parts. And when you're dealing with constant communications and materials and all of the things that need to go into this process, it is costly for our nonprofit.
It's an interesting point. We're not in Iraq and Afghanistan anymore, but we still have people deployed over in 150 countries. And they're moving brigades in and out for year-long deployments. So it's not like they're just at home stationed. Right. Even though they're not in active combat in many cases, there's still people in Syria and other places. There's still definitely a lot of soldiers going overseas that don't want to, just give away their buddy. All of a sudden, I've got to deploy, and what the heck do I do? So let's go to the other side real quick and look at what is the foster requirements. I'm somebody who lives near somewhere, and I want to foster a dog, or I guess maybe cats too. Do you do cats?
We foster almost every animal. We've had frogs, turtles. We have 5 horses in foster care right now, guinea pigs, ferrets. I don't think we've done a goldfish. That might be a little bit difficult to transport.
They do live a long time, though.
But if you'd like to be a foster, it's really one of the most amazing things you could do to support our military. First of all, it's 100% free. And I underline that, score that, highlight that. I can't say that enough. There's no hidden fees. The only thing it costs for you is to open up your home and provide love and support to this animal and care for it as if it were your own kid. The pet owner ahead of time, and this is where all the details come in. Before they deploy or go into the hospital or training or relocate, we set up a contract where the food and any other medication or supplies and toys and you name it is set up to be delivered at the foster home's door every single month. PACT jumps in and monitors to make sure that's happening. Heaven forbid a month goes by and an order wasn't there. That's up to us to step in. We're not going to let that pet starve. But at the same time, it's not up to the foster to do this. So any prearranged medical treatments, the pet owner's paying for that. All of the food, all the supplies, all the toys. The only thing the foster has to do is open up their home and provide a loving environment. But that's part of that profile that we create both on the pet and on the foster home side. So for example, just because you would like to foster a cat doesn't mean I'm going to give you a cat. I need to know what your home environment is like. And again, you don't have to have an elaborate home. If you were to pan my house right now, you'd see laundry out all over the place. It doesn't need to look perfect. But we do need to see what type of an environment you have. Do you have children? Because some pets are great with adults, but they're really not good with kids. Or do you have other pets? Some of our pets match very well with new pets. Others do not. So we're very careful when we do the match, because at the same time, which we don't want to see happen, but it does happen, we will re-foster in the middle of a foster if something is not working out.
And you never know until you're actually in that position. Sure. And if they were great with every other cat, and maybe another dog or whatever it is, exactly. And all of a sudden there's just some bad chemistry. It's just like people.
Pets are pets.
Pets are pets, and they're just like people. So, that's a challenge. Yes. So it's completely free for the foster. And if you're the pet owner, the veteran or the service member, you got to pay for your pet because that's, your pet. Yes. But, if there's an emergency, they'll take care of it. They'll get it to the vet. They'll take care of it as if it's their own. But it's still yours, still your responsibility.
One of the things that we are really trying to work on right now as an organization is to make this program not only more known to the bases across the country, and I'll talk for a little bit about what we're doing with Fort Hood right now, but also to get some of the residents that live at our military bases more involved with our program, be it as volunteers or foster homes themselves. Because, I can talk from experience. My husband was active duty in the Army for 5 years, and then another 21 years in the reserves. And if you are at home and you're looking to do something while your spouse is deployed and you want to get involved, it's just such a great way to care for a pet of someone else. Maybe you don't have one of your own, or maybe you have one, but you could take another one. It's just a really great way to support one another in the military. And our hope, one of the pilot programs that we're starting now at Fort Hood, is really to eventually have a handful of liaisons at every base across the country that will really act as a volunteer to deliver our message, let folks know that, yes, we do exist. And believe it or not, it really is true. And it is free to be a foster and it's a great thing. But we would love to see someone volunteer for us at all of the bases because we know the need exists. When Fort Hood came to us a little bit more than a year ago, they were so concerned because they said, we have this problem and we've been trying to solve it for years. We didn't know you existed. But let me tell you, at any given point, when you see a mass deployment happening, you will see hundreds of pets along the side of the road. And it's horrible because push comes to shove and you're either if your best friend promised to watch your pet or even a family member, and then something falls through, but you've got to go.
You've got to go.
Kenneling is extremely expensive.
It's exorbitant.
It's like the cheapest kenneling we could even find when we did a mass search across the country was $25 a day. Absolute cheap, lowest bare minimum. I would not call my local kennel where I live, bold and spectacular. It's a beautiful place, but it's not gorgeous and it's not a pet spa. And even mediocre, it's $45 a day. So you multiply that out times 365. It's impossible. It's not fair to the animal. It's completely unaffordable. So what we'd really love to see is that more military bases are stepping forward and saying, yes, I work with our RAB housing or the family readiness programs, and I would love to carry your message to PACT at some of our meetings and put your literature into some of our readiness programs because we do exist and we'd love to help more folks, but we'd also like to find more volunteers, more foster homes, and certainly more funding.
I think the interface part is the most important because, I could ask a buddy or a friend or somebody local, hey, can you watch my dog? And yeah, I'd be glad to. And then they get PCS orders and now they have to leave in 6 months. And so they were going to, and they've been doing it, but all of a sudden they're going to Hawaii. And you've got to do all those things, and that's just not fair. And
well, it's very expensive. I feel like most of our military does not realize just how expensive it is to transport your animal, because we've had a lot of requests from people that said that they got orders to Japan or Germany or Italy, and it's one thing to get the animal over there. It's another thing and way more expensive to bring the animal home, not to mention the time in quarantine and everything else. So, a lot of people, I feel like they really did try to do their homework and they thought they were prepared, but suddenly they were faced with, well, we can bring them over, but now if we did, we couldn't afford to bring them back. And what do we do? And
if you're a lower enlisted, a sergeant or a staff sergeant, E6, and all of a sudden you're looking at a $4,000 or $5,000 expense.
Right.
That's just, not feasible.
Right.
Even though you love your pet to the ends of the earth, it's just like, what am I going to do?
Well, and we all know absolutely just how comforting a pet is, especially when you're coming back from deployment or if you're recovering. We really specialize on the human-animal bond. I mean, it is there. There is no denying the fact that the health benefits to owning a pet are incredible. So it's a real positive to be able to have that. And also one of the things that I've been talking on bases, especially to some of the garrison commanders about this, is what we do is remove that distraction from your soldier. Because if they just had to relinquish their pet, whether it's at an overcrowded shelter, and God knows we all know what happens when a pet's at a shelter for too long, or if they had to get rid of it along the side of a road, they're not going to be focused for the first 3 weeks on their mission. They're going to be thinking about their kid that they let go and they're never going to see again. So we're trying to remove that distraction, have them really focused on the mission. And I did just want to talk a little bit about our veterans that we help, because it is something that I've had a chance to see firsthand in a way that I've heard about, but I just didn't know until all of these stories kept hitting us. We've had so many veterans that we have supported that prolonged major medical care and procedures because they couldn't find someone to take care of their pets. And I'm not talking about even something as, well, let's say severe, but not having a hip replacement. Okay, that's something you need. I'm talking about even veterans that put off cancer treatments that to you and I, you might say, hey, you got to go. This is something you don't joke about. But the problem is if you do not have that support and you don't have the funding to go to a kennel, even for, let's say, 6 or 8 weeks, these folks were coming to us and saying, it's been months or even years. I desperately need this medical care, but I don't know what to do with my dog. And it's a beautiful story to be able to help them, because you're literally saving this person's life by doing it.
And that shows the bond really very clearly about with people, because even you'll see homeless people that, they have their dog and the number one priority is taking care of their animal, even at their own detriment. Yes. And so people that, putting off cancer or any other treatment, oh, I'm okay today. I don't have a solution for Fluffy, and I'm just going to kind of wing it. And people put off really important stuff because of their animals.
Yes.
And that is the most heartwarming part about this, is taking care of the things that need to be done, whether it's a deployment or medical care. And it's not asking someone that who is saying yes, but at the same time, life happens. So there's other people backing you up. And I think it's that defense in depth that I think is so cool for PACT for animals.
Absolutely. No, it's beautiful to watch the reunions. It's very heartwarming because you know exactly why you did it. And I will say this, many of our foster homes and pet owners become lifelong friends. We've had weddings through the years where the foster home will attend the pet owner's wedding, or graduations or birthdays. They write to one another. We've had many, many repeat foster homes. They love the experience so much. Sure, it's heartbreaking in some ways to say goodbye to this pet, but they knew it up front. This was never going to be their pet. They were just taking care of it. And it's just, there's some really beautiful stories that are coming about because it's just, we struggle that still, after 11 years, people still don't know that this service is available.
And I wasn't aware of it until not too recently. And I was like, that's awesome. Let's go talk to them. Because I was one of those folks I was out in Germany. I had a dog. I brought her 3 different PCSs with me, and she was a German. I got her in Germany, and I was not aware, and sucked it up, but I figured it out. But it was really tough every time I had to deploy or I was PCSing and just doing that. But, I was with 12 years together, and It was just like, oh, and this is, and I'm old now. So, but at the time it was, like, wow, I guess I need to take a loan. I need to, I couldn't possibly in my mind just like give her up.
Right.
But at the same time, what do you do? Right. And so if I had this service, I would have taken a huge relief off and a burden off of that. Fortunately, I was able to figure it out, but not having that option was like really stressful.
Absolutely.
And so I can totally picture it. So we've talked about who, we've talked about where, but you guys are in all 50 states. Are you in more density in some places? Are you trying to fill some gaps in others?
Certainly. So we do operate in all 50 states. Right now, some of the states where we receive the greatest number of requests are Florida, California, New York, Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina, and Texas.
It's where all the bases are.
Pretty much where all the bases are. I mean, definitely if there's a larger base, we're getting a phone call, even though the base itself may not know that we exist. Folks have roundabout way found out about us. I mean, obviously it costs a lot of money to advertise. So we do not advertise. 90% of what we do is word of mouth, except for a lot of the social media advertising in very targeted geographic areas when we're looking for a foster in need for that particular pet. But yeah, I mean, those are our hot states for now, but we still get phone calls every day. I mean, we get phone calls we have a great volunteer coordinator that is in Boise, Ohio, or Idaho right now. We have decent amount of action in North and South Dakota.
Well, you mentioned your husband was in the reserves and National Guard. they deploy way more than
Yes.
people realize.
Yes.
And they're not plugged into the bases the way the active duty folks are.
No.
So
Well,
there's
not
a
only that,
whole
I mean, even
world
if you're
out
in the
there.
if you're in the military, so long as you're active, you're going to move every 3 years. So whether it's a shorter move or longer, you're going to move. So at some point, that conversation needs to come out a little bit more on, the family readiness of what are you doing with the pet? You start planning now. And again, you had mentioned in the beginning, does it help if you call sooner, but you're not sure when you're deploying? Absolutely. We'll start the whole contract in place until you say, okay, now I found out it's in about, 3.5 or 4 weeks from now. Okay, great.
So if you think you might deploy or might need some medical care or whatever,
Yes.
Start the process now. And the website's super easy to find. PACT4FOR, not the number 4, animals.org. But don't worry, we'll put it on the website and we'll put it on the social media. So if you're listening while you're driving, don't worry about it. It'll have all the links and stuff. So you don't even need to write it down. But if you want to write it down, it's PACT4, the word for, animals.org. Super easy to find. Now, this is expensive, arranging care, filling those requirements when something isn't happening. If the auto ship from Chewy doesn't arrive, how do you guys get funded?
So we do fundraising as many nonprofits do. We look for foundations, sponsors, and lots of individuals across the country. And the best thing really about this is anyone can help at any level. And I know that sounds very cliche to say, but it could be as simple as sending in a one-time donation, a monthly donation, or you could reach out to us and say, hey, I have a little bit of time on my hands. How could I help you? And for some of the more national companies that we work with, if some of our team members are applying for business sponsorships in one state, there's no reason you can't help us in your state.
Absolutely.
So, people host fundraisers for us all the time. We had a wonderful woman. Her name's Jordan down at Fort Hood in Texas, and she kicked off a Pampered Chef event for us. And because she was working with so many folks in a couple different states, we started receiving significant donations from some of her events that she hosted for us. Other people will do something as simple as a bake sale, or my kiddos did a lemonade stand this summer. It could be really easy, really fun. It's not meant to be grueling. But if someone's interested in fundraising, that's something that I handle if someone wants to reach out to me directly. And mine is really easy too. Mine's just Betsy at pactforanimals.org. And you can put that on your website too. I'll tell you about 25 different ways easy to fundraise for us.
Fundraising is always the hardest thing for nonprofits. It really is. And some people are afraid to ask. But if you're at all interested in helping veterans or active duty folks get a companion animal support while you're deployed or in the hospital, or where you can't take care of your animal, reach out to them. Because I know a lot of people that foster animals. They don't have animals all the time. They travel a bunch. They know, okay, for the next 2 months, I'm going to be home. They'll foster kittens or whatever, or rescue cats and try to get them so that they get fixed. They're barn cats. We have a huge barn cat population around here. So they go and all the feral cats, and they catch them and get them spayed and then release them back. So if you are at all interested in helping out, go check out the website. It's pretty easy to find, and we'll put it up on the website. Now, we've talked a lot of things, and I'm sure I've forgotten something. What's something I should have asked you about but didn't?
Oh boy. What type of events do we have throughout the year? There's something that we do from time to time. So because we're national, we do try to collaborate with different states, different military bases. And one of the things that we started last year, and we're very interested in starting it again in the coming year, is going to be our nationwide update. Last year, we had one of our military affairs advisor, Major General John Gronsky. He had just written a book called Iron Sharpened Leadership. And he made an outstanding presentation on lessons that he had learned during his time with the reserves and the National Guard. And through that, he could also talk about the importance of fostering animals. And this is one of the things that we hope to do in the future, is have many more national conversations, because we understand people kind of feel a little bit disconnected when we're all working together, but we're in different states. And it was a lot of fun last year to do this, because everyone came on Zoom, and tech is not my forte. day, but we had someone that knows exactly how to do Zoom. And we had, 100 or more faces on the screen with some great shout outs, whether it was all the way up at, Camp Wainwright in Alaska.
Yep.
We had someone in Hawaii. We had someone over at Camp Lejeune, someone in, oh gosh, where were they? They're up at Fort Drum in New York. And of course, our good old Fort Hood in Texas. And it was just great to see the synergy. And that's probably an event we're going to be doing again in the near future.
So we've been talking with Betsy Kilkenny. She's the executive director of PACT, which I think is pretty awesome. The people and animals equals companions together. And the whole idea is that, hey, if you are going to deploy or not able to take care of your animal, they will help arrange for foster care for longer term periods. So it's not like an immediate, like, oh, I need it for a week. I'm going to be deployed for 6 months. Boom. That is where you need to reach out. Take some coordination. So plan ahead, but there are resources available to help you navigate this. And that's the really cool thing I think that PACT does, is that you're not asking just your buddy or someone down the street who has a lot of things. So if there are issues, there's people that can help jump in and change the situation. If they weren't able to watch them, and not just, hey, I've been deployed for 4 months, and all of a sudden the person who's been watching Fluffy says, I can't watch Fluffy anymore. You need to figure it out while you're in Afghanistan or Syria or Poland or wherever you are. That doesn't work. That's too difficult to do when you're thousands of miles away, and now all of a sudden you're stressed out about it. So get in touch with them if you might at all need this help. It doesn't cost anything except to take care of your animal, which I think is an important thing. You should always take care of your animal. But if you're looking at fostering too, that's really awesome. It doesn't cost anything to foster, which is probably one of the reasons people don't foster as much. If I'm saying, hey, yeah, I'll take an animal, but it's going to cost me like $300 a month. Well, golly, not a lot of people, especially nowadays, have extra cash just floating around to do that. So get in touch with them. Betsy, what else am I missing?
I think you've covered it all.
I think we talked about most of it. We talked about fundraising. We talked about where you are, which is everywhere. Do you guys ever do anything overseas?
We don't yet. And that's a lot of the reason has been because there are different rules for different countries. And we have not gotten to that point yet. There's so much of a need in our own country first that we really want to focus on taking care of that.
It gets real complicated real fast.
It gets very complicated, especially with quarantining and different regulations. It's not to say it's something that we won't consider down the road, but right now we have quite a problem in the United States, and we're going to focus on helping more folks at different bases.
So you mentioned one story about the person who needed a really important medical care. They put it off. Is there any other sort of rise above the top stories about where PACT was able to help and sort of made that big difference?
Sure. Oh, absolutely. I mean, there is... It's hard to say just one.
The one. Yeah.
Even this summer, again, I'm just pulling from something. And this past year, we had a woman that had deployed or she was ready to deploy. She had looked everywhere, and she did come to us a little bit, I would say, very last minute notice. But, she did the right thing. She was looking around. She was asking friends and asking family and just assumed something would fall into place, and it never did. And I remember when one of my colleagues took the phone call, and she called me afterwards, and she says, we have to help this person. This dog means absolutely everything to her. It is extremely last minute notice, but I can't go to bed tonight. And this is what our team is like. Our team is 24/7. This is what they live, breathe, sleep. We full crazy team effort to make sure that we can help as many people as we can. And I remember when she said, we absolutely have to pull out all stops and help her. Katie absolutely needs our help. Well, fast forward, we were able to find someone for Katie, and we were surprised to learn that the internet sensation, the dodo, had picked up on our story and then contacted us and wanted to know everything about Katie. So just this past week, Katie's commercial was made for the dodo and released about her story with PACT. So I can also send you that link to put on your website as well, and you can learn all about Katie and how we helped her.
Well, I'm looking forward to looking at the link and learning all about the story about Katie, because that's what it's all about. We've been talking with Betsy Kilkenny. She's the executive director of PACT. Folks, go check out the website. Go think about it. It's one of those resources that is so unique to the military requirements that you had thought that it would have been like a bigger thing. And I had never heard of PACT or any organization like that, actually, other than local shelters and, local things. But when you're at Fort Hood and there's nothing around except other military people that are mostly all deploying too, the resources get really strained really fast. And you can't always figure things out like Katie was. Oh, some solution will happen. And then it doesn't. And you get stressed out. Nationwide, all 50 states. Thank you so much for joining us on Coming Home Well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I hope more people will find out about us.
I'm sure they will. This is a great thing that you guys are doing, and it's really awesome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us this week on Coming Home Well with Dr. Tyler Piron. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and a review. Follow us on Instagram at ComingHomeWell_BTS or on Twitter at ComingHomeWell. Thanks again. And until all are home and all are well, this is Coming Home Well.